To the developments in Eswatini, where dozens of people are believed to have been injured in days of demonstrations, pro-democracy protests taking place in that country. People have been protesting against the government led by King Mswati III. This is Africa's last absolute monarchy. Anger towards King Mswati's autocratic rule has been brewing for years now. Demonstrators say their king and the ruling elite have consistently evaded calls for meaningful reform in the landlocked nation. Speak more about this with Depose Muchena, who is Director of Amnesty International, East and Southern Africa, joining us by phone this time. Depose, I hope we're able to hear each other better. Let's talk about your understanding of the situation as far as rights violations are concerned in Eswatini over the course of this week and in the earlier days of protest.
Thank you, Thembekile. I think what we can say and confirm is that the government of Eswatini has launched a full frontal assault on human rights in response to ongoing pro-democracy protests. As a result of that frontal attack, dozens of people have been killed. Some have been tortured, some have been abducted, just for daring to demand that their government respect human rights and achieve, or rather implement, the reforms that Amaswati aspire to have in their own country. At this present moment, as of yesterday, we had confirmed that at least 20 people had been killed by state security forces, that 6 others who participated in the protest had not been accounted for, and that around 150 protesters or more had been hospitalized with severe injuries, including gunshot wounds sustained from live ammunition fired by the police. This obviously reflects a worsening conduct of security forces in response to its own citizens, and Amnesty International is calling now for Eswatini authorities to allow independent pathologists and medical doctors to have access so that they're able to see and conduct full medical examinations to ascertain the circumstances around the deaths of all these people, and the count actually could be more. This is just what we've been able to verify.
Is that among the issues that you would like then this team that's being deployed by SADC leaders to Eswatini to focus on, allowing groups such as yourselves access to communities to see what exactly has been suffered by civilians?
Absolutely, and SADC must not miss this opportunity to go and visit and have friendly chat with authorities that have now launched full frontal attack on unarmed citizens and unarmed people. It's important that SADC ensures that authorities there carry out prompt and thorough, impartial, independent and transparent investigation into all these reports of excessive use of force, including ensuring that the command element that issued shoot-to-kill orders are held accountable in fair trials.
How much of the issues with, for example, MTN, the mobile network operator, being ordered by the local officials in Eswatini to cut signal or limit people's access to internet signal and the like, how much of that is still happening now, and how much does it concern you as far as its impact on people's ability to sound the alarm as there is this escalation and perhaps even document the extent of abuses currently?
So we are very concerned, and I think what we need to highlight through this opportunity you've given us is that Eswatini is signatory to a number of international human rights obligations that it must abide by, including ensuring that there is freedom of expression, freedom to receive information and to impart it. But we know that since the protest started and the introduction of curfews, Eswatini authorities have worked with independent telecoms companies like MTN to impose a blackout on communication and internet to curtail any sharing of any information online. Now, these internet shutdowns are a terrible drain. They impact the economy negatively, and they just worsen the conditions that we have. Hundreds of protesters have been detained just for wanting to express themselves. I think it's important that the weaponizing of the law that Swaziland or Eswatini authorities have been doing for a long time, including this deployment of Suppression of Terrorism Act of 2008 and the Seditions Act of 1938. They have been routinely used to target human rights defenders, and all we are seeing is a toolbox of repression that is being opened by Eswatini authorities on a daily basis. So if a sudden delegation is going into the country, it really needs to focus on the real issues, which is the worsening human rights violations that have taken place, the killings, the torture, the abduction. and hospitals that are now becoming full with people who are injured. Actually go and see them, observe the gunshot wounds, and allow the documentation to take place, and then justice and accountability become the pathway. Otherwise, impunity remains the story in Eswatini.
Very quickly, Depose, then the president, well, not the president, the acting prime minister in the latest statement condemned what he said were riots that were escalating, people setting fire to buildings and other property in Eswatini, and per the government's account, worsening the situation currently. Do you back the call for that to stop?
The authorities have a responsibility, of course, to ensure that law and order prevails in the country. The authorities have no right to shoot, to kill their own people who are protesting. Protest is part of the freedom of expression guaranteed by all member states that are members of African Union protocols and provisions, that are members of the United Nations, signed up to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So I think there's a relationship here between what the government needs to do, which they must, but what the government cannot do is compromise the right to life, because they've signed up in their own constitution that they will protect the right of life. And that is where our focus is as an organization.
All right, Depose Muchena with Amnesty International. Good to speak to you, sir. Thank you.